And joining me in studio now is Mr. Riggs Eckelberry. He is the CEO of Origin Oil Incorporated, stock symbols OOIL. Riggs, good to see you again.
Don, a great pleasure as always.
Well, now, Riggs, you've got a special guest with us here this week. Mind introducing him to us and our audience?
This is my good friend, Dr. Vikram Patakine. He's the Chief Technology Officer of Origin Oil. Dr.
Patakine, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, a couple of weeks ago, Riggs was so kind as to bring just your photograph with him and introduced you coming on with the company. I'm interested to know, because we've been talking about the company now for a few weeks, what was it about Origin Oil that encouraged you to join the company and help move this technology forward?
Okay, I'll answer that in two parts.
Okay.
One, why am I interested in algae to oil in the first place? Because algae is the fastest growing biomass that we know of, which grows on waste gas, waste water, and can grow on waste land. So it's a very promising technology for getting something very useful out of waste. And then why did I join Origin Oil? Because the team here is superbly motivated, very talented, and very enthusiastic about moving forward. So they needed somebody with biological expertise to join them, which is what I have been doing throughout my career. I've been a biological process engineer. So I believe that I could bring something to the already motivated and enthusiastic team that we have. And hopefully we are going to create something very useful here for all of us.
You know, it's interesting because biofuels started out with so much promise, and then it kind of got a bad rap in the last 3 or 4 years, you know, because they were using corn, they were using wheat, they were using food sources to create biofuels, and then we saw the prices of cattle feed go up, thereby meat was going up, and prices of grains were going up because half of the crop was being used for the creation of biofuel. Is algae the future? Is algae the secret that we've been looking for?
Absolutely, I think so, because as I said, that's the only biomass that we can grow on all waste resources. So we are not competing with anything. We are not competing with arable land that can grow food. We are not competing with water that can be used for irrigation or for any other purposes. And of course, carbon dioxide everybody wants to get rid of.
Now, Riggs, we talked about this last week. The company has this extraordinary vision of many brewing operations, so to speak, of algae that can be converted for biofuel use. Can you expound on that again, please?
Don, our mission is to really crack the code on the technology so that we've learned and reduced to process, with Dr. Vikram's help, all the ways that you can make algae grow really fast on a scalable basis. Then we want to export the knowledge, hopefully all over the world, so that we can break the back of this huge challenge, not by having a few large plants in places like America, but rather all over the world people are adopting it simultaneously.
I mean, does this present an opportunity, I would guess, say, for entrepreneurs to have their own processing or brewing plant? I mean, is this kind of what you're envisioning?
Yes. Every one of our opportunities involves a CO2 polluter, for example. And that's maybe a very large company. But to service that company, we don't want to do it directly.
Right.
We want to recruit people who will stand there and be our partners and implement with all those large CO2 polluters so that there's an algae solution for them.
Well, let's talk about a hypothetical situation. I mean, what would be an example of a small operation? I mean, how much product could someone produce, say, in a year's time in a small operation?
Well, it's a good way to look at it is that let's say that you imagine these 40-foot shipping containers. And for starters, you might invest in one. And I think they'd be reasonably priced. We're just now starting to price them out. And you would then hook it up to, let's say, for example, a methane operation from manure.
Okay.
So you've got manure being turned into methane, and almost half of that methane, the gas, is actually CO2.
I see.
You then use that CO2, put it into that 40-foot container,
okay,
and then the algae can go to feedstock or right back into the methane process. That's a nice little circular loop. Now, in terms of productivity, it's very early to tell yet just how much mass you'd get out of it, and this is one of the big tasks ahead for Dr. Vikram, which is really to model out the productivity of the whole system and how is it viable, commercial, and ultimately will make a difference out there in the field.
Well, Dr. Patakine, from a scientific perspective, can you imagine any kind of difficulties that might arise if there were, setups like this all over the country or all over the world? I mean, would this be a daunting task for the company to keep track of?
Probably not. You see, I come from a wastewater treatment industry background where we use microorganisms to treat wastewater, and once the operators are trained in how to operate these plants, they run just fine. I mean, most of our wastewater is treated using microorganisms. Secondary treatment we call it's using biological processes. So it's an evolution process. We are at the beginning stages of algae right now. So it will take some time, and we hope that our operators operating these plants would be just as trained as the operators we see in other biological processes. So I see a great future for us.
Are there, and I'll pose this question to anyone who wants it, but are there any potential waste products from the process that we would have to be concerned about? I mean, we always concern ourselves with that. You're a green company, you're a renewable energy company. Is there anything left over that we have to be concerned about through the process?
Okay, well, luckily algae biomass doesn't generate much ash, so to say. So we will have very little to be concerned about in terms of disposal, ultimate disposal. So it's the kind of biomass that we process engineers would love, where almost all of it is useful in some form or the other. Because the carbon portion of the algae can be utilized for oil, and the nutrients can be utilized either as a fertilizer or as animal feed. So it's very useful.
Well, Riggs, from the standpoint of the corporate side, we've been talking about the scientific side a lot this week. What's next for the company? What's your next big challenge?
Well, I wanted to mention that early tomorrow morning I will be speaking at the Senate Latino Caucus. This is something called Econ Dev, and of course we're now starting to draw the lines of the coming alternative energy investment that this group and of course the federal administration is now going to be embarking on. This is a huge promise, and what we're now doing is bringing ourselves into that current so that we're participants. Now in the short term, we're really focusing on the R&D. We want to quantify what we've got. We want to get those magic numbers that everybody needs to hear very, very soon, and we want to keep growing our prototypes up to larger and larger scale, and that's our mission right now.
Are we looking at a situation here where, as this technology expands, we're going to see a lot of small players enter the market, and then it's going to they're going to kind of challenge one another, and there's going to emerge 3 or 4 big players, or is this something that a lot of smaller companies can do quite well operating side by side?
I think you're right that there's going to be there's already a profusion of these algae operators in various ways, and there's going to be a shakeout, no doubt about it. And for that reason, we've worked very hard to position ourselves as a facilitator for everyone. Okay. So as a technology company, we'll serve all those people, like the way Earthlink was a service provider to everyone in a way. So if you take the internet analogy, there were the people who were building sort of the Amazons of the world, and only one survived, Amazon. Of course. But then, of course, there's all the service providers, and to this day, they're still in business as well. And we want to really be facilitating the industry from the technology side.
Very, very interesting. Once again, Origin Oil, OOIL. Give us a call, 888-259-4449. Dr. Patakine, Riggs, always a pleasure having you here. Congratulations on joining the company. Thanks for the update. Great stuff.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.